Hello there, and welcome back to the show. And today I want to talk about Spider Man, specifically Spider Man Shattered Dimensions, a video game that was released in September of 2010. And the reason I want to talk about a video game that's almost 14 years old is because one, it was one of my favorite video games as a teenager. Number two, earlier this month, about 2 weeks ago, marked the 10-year anniversary of The Amazing Spider Man 2, and in another timeline, about a month and a half ago, we were supposed to get Spider-Verse 3, but that has been delayed indefinitely. So I figured, okay, I want to talk about Spider-Man. Spider-Man is on my mind, and what better than one of my favorite video games? Now, the thing that attracted me to Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, to be perfectly honest, was the cover. I saw the cover of four different versions of Spider-Man, and I only recognized the classic and the symbiote. I didn't recognize 2099 and Noir. I saw the four of them, did some research, and I was like, this sounds awesome. I need to have this video game. So I went out and bought it on the PS3, and I loved it. One of my favorite games, and I figured, why not share my experiences? So the game starts off with some amazing narration from Stan Lee, and Mysterio is robbing a museum until he's interrupted by the Amazing Spider-Man. Mysterio is after a thing that we come to know as the Tablet of Order and Chaos, and after a scuffle with Spider-Man, Spider-Man punches the tablet, breaks it into pieces, spreading it across dimensions, and now we have to go and gather the tablets under the orders of Madam Web to reassemble them before Mysterio can get his hands on them. Madam Web informs us that we are not alone and will be joined by three other Spider-Men in their dimensions, and will be playing as these four throughout the game. The game is consisting of five sections: the tutorial, Act 1, which has four bosses, Act 2, which also has four bosses, Act 3, which also has four bosses, and the final boss, which is Mysterio. The tutorial gives you a gist of how each Spider-Man will play, and you get a good glance at them in their opening levels. The Amazing Spider-Man, voiced by Neil Patrick Harris, who played the character in Spider-Man, the new animated series, handles pretty much how you'd expect Spider-Man to handle in a video game. Some nice combos, some nice open world swings, and really good Spider-Man, in my opinion. I really enjoyed playing as the Spider-Man. If I was to rank them, he'd probably be my second favorite in this game. You fight against three bosses using the Amazing Spider-Man, and they are Craven the Hunter, Sandman, and Juggernaut. Out of these three, I'd say Sandman was probably my favorite to fight, in that it was an interesting thing, especially when he turns into that tornado and using water. I thought that was really interesting, and yeah, I really enjoyed playing as the Amazing Spider-Man in this game. I like the combos, I liked his quips, especially that one line against the Juggernaut, time for the coup de grace, and Juggernaut says, I don't like French food, and then he throws him across the city. That to me was very funny, and I really enjoyed playing as the Amazing Spider-Man. The other Spider-Man we get to play as is Spider-Man Noir, set in 1930s New York. I really love the aesthetic and the vibe of this Spider-Man, very gangster-esque. I like there's an interconnected story between the three acts, where the overarching story is you've got Norman Osborn slash Goblin as this mafia boss type deal, and he's got his two underlings, Vulture and Hammerhead, and these are the bosses you fight. I really like the aesthetic and the vibe of Spider-Man Noir. The cutscenes, in my opinion, are some of the best in the game, especially the opening cutscene against the Goblin at the carnival. And this one line, Osborn's camped out somewhere here in this rotted alley of nightmares. That line has stuck with me for years. I love that line. This Spider-Man is voiced by Christopher Daniel Barnes, who voiced Spider-Man in Spider-Man the Animated Series, and it somehow manages to feel like a completely different character. He does a great job at bringing this character to life. And like I mentioned, I love the aesthetic and the vibe of the noir world. I just love it. However, Spider-Man Noir was also the most boring Spider-Man to play as because he is primarily a stealth-based character. And for me, I'm more of the action and guns blazing style of gameplay. I'm not a big fan of stealth, and to me, like all the silent takedowns, it just got tedious and repetitive after a while. And that's kind of reflected in the game because, like, this Spider Man doesn't have the best melee attacks. It's primarily silent takedowns, which kind of fits with this world. However, on the same time, it's like this wasn't the most fun Spider-Man to play as in this game, even though he had the best aesthetic and atmosphere. Up next, Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, voiced by Dan Gilvezan, who played the character in Spider-Man and his amazing friends from the 1970s cartoon. And I really enjoyed the futuristic Spider-Man. This was my first glance at the 2099 suit. I thought it looked awesome in the cover, and it looked even more awesome in the game. The free dive aspect, that was a unique element. Accelerated vision, that was really awesome and really cool to play as. That was just an awesome thing. It's making him stand out from the other different Spider-Man. The three bosses we fight against here are Hobgoblin, Scorpion, and Dr. Octopus, all of whom are completely different from what I remember. Hobgoblin is seemingly a full robot. Scorpion is organic versus a guy in a costume, and Dr. Octopus was female instead of Otto Octavius. So I like that they did a twist on the characters that I was familiar with. Miguel O'Hara, really enjoyed this Spider-Man and loved the aesthetic. Some cool like futuristic scenes, especially the Scorpion. That was my favorite level to play as with 2099, and those are my thoughts on that. And no question, my absolute favorite, the Ultimate Spider-Man, black suit, voiced by Josh Keaton from The Spectacular Spider-Man. Number one, no question, the funniest out of these four. The best lines, the best quips, the best everything. Second, the most fun to play as. The black suit was overpowered, and I absolutely loved it, especially in Rage Mode. This feature that allowed you to go berserk, it was just awesome to play as. The three bosses we face as Ultimate Spider-Man are Electro, Deadpool, and Carnage, and I loved the Deadpool level. That to me was just incredible. And Electro, some of the best lines, especially in the opening cutscene where Electro says, "See what I can do now," and Spider-Man's responses, "Oh wow, I am so impressed. I have never seen anyone start a truck before." That line made me burst into laughter the first time I heard it. Just an awesome line. And it just goes to show that Josh Keaton's time as Spider-Man in the Spectacular Spider-Man was cut way too short. He deserved so much more, and I hope that we get to see him return as a main Spider-Man character sometime in the future. But yeah, I enjoyed the Ultimate Spider-Man, my favorite character in this game, my favorite level, and like three of my favorite levels. And yeah, I really enjoyed playing as this Spider-Man. I mentioned that I enjoyed playing as the Ultimate Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man, and Spider-Man 2099. Spider-Man Noir, I love being in the world, but playing it, not as much. But what I will give praise for, in addition to the voice acting from the four actors who played Spider-Man, is I want to give praise to the fact that all four of them felt unique and different. A level on The Amazing Spider-Man did not feel the same as a level on Ultimate Spider-Man. They managed to give the four characters unique, distinct levels, game styles, and I really appreciated that, making the four characters feel unique in unique worlds and in unique settings. So I really, really admired that. The boss battles were really fun to play as, and I liked the boss designs. Vulture, Hobgoblin, and Scorpion in particular, to me, stand out. The game introduces three new characters: Hammerhead Noir, Hobgoblin 2099, and Dr. Octopus 2099 were created specifically for this game according to the BIOS. So I thought that was really cool, unique bosses, and the game to me did a good job at flushing out each boss for the time that they were allotted. In addition to the four Spider-Man, I want to praise the rest of the voice cast as well. We've got some amazing voice acting work. Steve Bloom as Hobgoblin, incredible. John DiMaggio, who I believe voiced Hammerhead, he was great. Nolan North as Deadpool, phenomenal. Thomas F. Wilson as Electro, really good. The entire voice cast does a great job. I mentioned Stan Lee's narration, and he was great throughout the game, in particular the ending animation, the final closing monologue, where the four Spider-Men are swinging, and the final line that they all say in unison, "I'm the best," and Stan Lee's closing narration, that gave me goosebumps as a kid playing this game. It was just so cool. To me, this really elevated the concept of crossovers, like what a multiverse team up can be. Like, to me, this was just so cool, and I loved it, seeing it play out. This was really awesome. I've mentioned this earlier. I had a blast playing this game as a kid. Coming back from a terrible day of school, I'd fire up the PS3, pop in this game, and it was just amazing to play as. This was one of the first video games where I acquired the Platinum Trophy, which again has a special place in my heart. There are some cool things in this game, like the Web of Destiny, 180 challenges, 15 per level for the 3 acts that you're able to accomplish, giving the game some replay value. Some unlockable costumes, 3 per Spider-Man. Some of my personal favorites are the Iron Spider, Bagman, and Manga Spider-Man. Those are just really cool. The game also features an amazing end credit scene with Spider-Ham that did get a laugh out of me. I thought that was pretty awesome. I also liked the way the Mysterio boss fight was handled at the end of this game. You fight Mysterio as each 4 versions of Spider-Man, and each boss battle feels different and unique, catering to that Spider-Man. For example, Noir is completely stealth-based, where you have to do a silent takedown. 2099 is a free fall. Ultimate is this massive horde of bosses and just the bad guys coming at you, and you have to use rage. And the Amazing Spider-Man is essentially like Noir, but not as many bosses. So I like the way the Mysterio fight was handled. If there's a few things that I would say I didn't like about the game, one would be the gameplay for Spider-Man Noir, but I get why they did that, giving it its own unique flavor, but personally wasn't the big fan of the stealth modes. Secondly, I was a little disappointed that the game wasn't more of an open world. It is the tutorial, the 12 bosses, and then Mysterio at the end. So once you beat a certain level, just like maybe 3 or 4 times, not exactly a lot of replay value aside from completing challenges on the Web of Destiny or obtaining trophies. Is just level, boom, move on. I would have really liked an open world thing after you beat the game, kind of in a similar vibe to Batman Arkham City. After you beat the game, you could still roam around the city, completing side quests and whatever, but I understand why they went this route, and in the grand scheme of things, it did fit with the story of the game, so I can forgive that. In conclusion, I love this game. I really enjoyed playing it. I loved the story that we went on. The boss battles were pretty cool. I loved playing as the Ultimate Spider-Man. That was just so much fun, just firing rage mode and going crazy on enemies. Tremendous amounts of fun. I loved the Spider-Verse concept. The opening and closing scenes were just epic, and I really, really enjoyed the video game Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. And I loved it. I enjoyed Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. I loved the Spider-Verse story, and I think this is a really great Spider-Man story. And well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.